Hi students, Mrs. Russell here. Today we're going to talk about research process step number 4, which is recording information. At this point in the research process, you should have defined your task, which included identifying the topic for your research and your guiding questions. During step 2, you determined which sources you are going to locate by finding them using different databases such as Gale. And then during step 3, you evaluated those sources to make sure that the information you are going to record is accurate. Today, we're going to talk about the different things that you need to consider during this part of the research process, recording information. The guiding questions from your research process overview notes that we discussed in class were, how will I organize the information I collect during my research? What key research pieces are necessary to complete my tasks? And when do I need to summarize, paraphrase, and/or quote the information that I collect? One of the first things that we're going to talk about is how will I organize the information I collect during my research? I've provided a resource that you can use if you like taking digital notes. Now, you can still take digital notes without using this resource, but I did want to give it to you as an option just in case you like to have a very specific way in order to gather the information that you're going to use. This will be located in Google Classroom. I'll quickly show it to you right now, but I'll also show you other ways that you can organize information when you collect your research. If you click on this link, it'll take you to a note-taking document that you can use in order to access all of, in order to keep track of all the information that you gather during your research. I won't read through this one specifically. However, I do just want to point out a couple of different things that, regardless of whether or not you use this template or another template, these are the things that you should be considering when you gather your information, okay? First of all, we need to make sure that we are focusing in on gathering information that answers our guiding questions, okay? We also need to make sure that we're keeping track of the different sources that we are using. One of the reasons that I like this setup specifically is that it allows me to track the information that could go with guiding question number 1 from source number 1, guiding question number 2 from source number 1, and guiding question number 3 from source number 1. Now, keep in mind that you may not be able to answer all 3 of those questions just from source number 1. But if you can, that would definitely make a very valuable source. So the way that I've set this up is that it has guiding questions along the top, and then along the side, spaces for you to track your source. So just one option for note-taking. You can also take notes by hand in your notebook, keeping track of the source, keeping track of the guiding questions, or you could do a hybrid of the two. When you go into your actual research planner, the one that you've been using over the past couple of days, you'll come across this slide here of recording information. Notice that the guiding questions are here on the side, the same ones that we've been discussing. How will I organize the information I collect during my research? When do I need to summarize, paraphrase, and/or quote the information I collect? Now, on this slide specifically, I've also provided some other strategies that you can explore when you're determining how you are going to take notes. If you'd like, these are clickable links that will take you into BrainPop, general note-taking strategies, things to consider, how to paraphrase, a new strategy called concept mapping. And there's also this great article about different note-taking styles. If you're doing this by hand, I would suggest opening up this note-taking styles website simply because it does take you into a bunch of different examples on specific methods for note-taking, such as the Cornell method. You can also look at the outline method. This was actually one of my favorites when I was in school. The charting method, the sentence method, amongst a couple of other things. Mind mapping is similar to concept mapping. And if you are interested in concept mapping, there is a link here. So again, just another resource for you to look at. However, once you're done looking at these different resources, I do want you to answer this question at the bottom here so that I'm aware of how you personally plan to record your information. Okay? So again, that's really the only thing that you're doing on this slide here is you are exploring the different resources that I've given you, and you're telling me, now that I have an idea of the different ways that I can record my information, how do I plan to do so? This is not where you are actually going to record your information. Unlike the previous 3 slides, you are going to be recording your information on a different document, whether that's digital or that's in your notebook, okay? Another thing that we needed to consider are what key research pieces are necessary to complete my task. Whenever you're reading information, you're going to have to ask yourself this question about trash versus treasure, okay? And what that simply means is, based on all of this information that I am reading, what is trash? Basically, what do I need to get rid of? What is not going to help me answer my research questions? What is not going to be useful for my presentation? Treasure, on the other hand, is going to be information that you collect that is directly related to your research questions. It is going to be useful for your presentation. That's the stuff that we're going to call treasure, because you're going to want to hold on to it. You're going to want to collect it and harvest it and eventually use it to your benefit. And last but not least, we also talked about this question: when do I need to summarize, paraphrase, and or quote the information that I collect? Here's just a very quick graphic. I know it's a little bit blurry, I'm sorry. But just a quick graphic that shows you when you might be able to use these 3 different research information strategies. So when you're quoting, maybe that's when you need to maintain accuracy or highlight specific words. Those could be quotes that somebody from an organization said during an interview. It could be a statistic or a fact that you think would work best if it's delivered exactly the way you found it when you were doing your research. Paraphrasing, which we know is taking information and putting it into your own words. You might want to use that when you're trying to maintain your own voice. Your own personality, your own style is trying to stay intact. So you want to paraphrase. Now, summarizing, maybe you have a ton of information. Maybe it's an entire article. But really, you only want to point out just a few of the important facts. That's when you would go ahead and summarize. So that's the end of the lesson. Now, you're going to go into Google Classroom today, and you're actually going to complete an activity that is going to be called Trash or Treasure Skills Check. Okay? I'm just going to discuss the directions and look at just question number 1 with you, just to make sure that you understand what the purpose of this assignment is. So, directions. Select if each supporting detail is treasure, which means it's supporting the thesis statement or the goal that you're trying to complete, Or if it's trash, it does not support your thesis statement. It does not support the goal that you are trying to accomplish. So here's our thesis statement. When the Pilgrims arrived on the shore of the New World, they did not have the skills they needed to survive. So if this were my thesis statement, any information that I am trying to collect needs to be directly related to this, and skills that Pilgrims would need to have in order to survive in the New World. So if I'm doing research on this, I need to make sure that the information I'm collecting is directly related to the skills that Pilgrims needed in order to survive in the New World, okay? So when I go down and I look at question number 1, that first winter, before the Pilgrims received help from the Native Americans, about half their numbers died. Now, does that tell me that they didn't have skills needed to survive? Yeah, it does. It tells me that the Native Americans were going to be able to help them, but because they did not have that help, half of their numbers died. So I would need to determine in my work, is this trash or is this treasure? And that would end up being treasure, okay? All right, so what you're going to do today again is you are going to rewatch this lesson if you need to. You're going to continue to reflect on these 3 different questions for research process step number 4, which is recording information. You need to determine how you are going to collect that information, either by using that digital resource or coming up with your own method. And then from there, you're actually going to be collecting your information and asking yourself, what is trash versus treasure? What out of all of this information is related to my research questions specifically, but also what can I use for my presentation? As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I will see you next week upon my return. Happy researching. Have fun.